everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be some quick thoughts on the second trailer of The Flash. Now there may be spoilers throughout for all movies within the DC Cinematic Universe, so just be aware when going into this overall video, and you can check out what I felt about the first trailer of the film, and I'll leave some links within the description. So we'll get straight into it then and talk about the second trailer. And overall, I thought it was okay. It doesn't leave me any more hyped or excited for this movie. It has the same high energy and visuals and colour as the first trailer did, and it definitely had more vibes of the Snyder DC films with all of the slow motion shots and big dramatic spectacle and heightened audio and bombastic musical score. And at this point it feels very typical and familiar with so many superhero movies that we've seen already, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons why I didn't really feel anything truly exceptional about this trailer. Now they've definitely pushed a lot more Sasha Calle Supergirl and Michael Keaton's Batman, which was to be expected. We've known really from the first moment that this film was announced that Ezra Miller as the Flash wasn't really a strong enough presence to carry the movie on his own, and of course with all of the controversy surrounding him, that doesn't help matters either. So we knew going into this that they would shift the focus as much as they could on especially Michael Keaton to riff off all of the nostalgic feelings from his previous Batman movies. And we can see this all within the marketing for the film, very much presenting this as a three-way character dynamic when you look at all of the promotional material. And for all of the spectacle put on screen, there is still some shots that don't look completely finished or a too obvious green screen, and again it didn't look very convincing. Now one of the biggest examples of this was this sequence where we see Supergirl and the two variants of the Flash, or Barry Allen, sliding forward in this desert background where we assume the big battle would take place. Another example was the appearance of Ben Affleck's Batman, whether he's riding out on his bike from the massive Batmobile ship or leaping out into all of the explosions. It just has that real lifeless feel about it, like he's not really there. We do understand that all of these superhero films are going to be CGI heavy, but you still want to try and add as much tangents of realism as possible, otherwise it's not going to really grip us when we see all of the action take place on screen. And I'm still not a fan of all of the Flash costumes either, whether it's the darker variant of Barry or the alternate version where we see him, he has the costume which has been based on Batman's costume from Batman Returns, and this design really looks off. It doesn't look proportionally correct, and it doesn't look a good fit on him at all, whether it's in still or live action. And even the main Flash costume, as I said in the first trailer, it just looks like it's CGI'd or painted on. It doesn't really look like it's actually being worn by the character. And whilst this won't have any bearing on the overall quality in terms of the story, it just again takes you out of the action to a certain point. Now I do think that Sasha Calle still looks good in her costume, even though I will always prefer the classic blonde Supergirl look. And again, many fans, even if they like this movie, will have to be clear that this is a one and done, because we've got the James Gunn coming version, The Girl of Tomorrow, which we assume will see much more of the classic Supergirl look. Now going later on into the trailer, we see a lot of the Man of Steel revisions. That's what we know from the story, where basically this will be alternate reality where it won't be Henry Cavill's version, but it will indeed be Supergirl's version. And if you've read a lot online with certain leaks, this will be Zod and Vayora appearing, where at some stage they've managed to kill the Henry Cavill version of Superman, and this will be the Supergirl version wanting to take care of some revenge. I'm really not sure why we're doing this, going over Man of Steel once more. It already proved divisive, and it's proven to be divisive many years after its release, and it will put off a lot of people who weren't a fan of that particular movie. So all of these rerun shots of the Metropolis destruction and the armoured look of Zod, and we see Supergirl fighting the Kryptonians, again it really didn't do anything for me. Now we do later on get the big shots of what we assume will be the massive battle against the Kryptonians within the desert, and I would like to believe that they wouldn't spoil the big final battle within this film, that we will indeed get a different climax. Now I've seen a lot of reactions online stating that from this trailer that they have indeed spoiled the film by giving the overall final battle, but it could be possible that this could happen in the middle part of the film and that we do indeed get a much more personal conflict towards the end. This conflict I assume will be between the Barry from the normal timeline and the variant Barry, who many have assumed will indeed be the antagonist, or there will be some sort of Barry from the future that will come back in the timeline, and the eventual conflict will be where the main Barry will want to destroy the alternate timeline to save the universe, and the alternate Barry will want to retain it as this is his reality where his parents are still alive. And this is of course relating to the source material of the comic books. There were no hints as any cameos yet, appearing in this film, And so far, having the film already been released at the Warner Brothers CinemaCon, where people have already watched the film and are starting to give their reviews, it does beg the question as to whether we will indeed see any cameos, or it could be that the film, with 2 months still to go to its overall release, will give them enough time to re-CGI in any cameos that maybe were omitted from the initial release. Now, it does seem that the movie will go for some high emotional stakes in terms of Barry's family. We all know the main catalyst of the story, where Barry goes back in time to save his mother from being murdered, which causes the dystopian timeline in the first place. And all of these scenes involving his mother and his father in certain anguish do look very good. And if these scenes are acted properly, it will certainly help raise the stakes as we go towards the film's final climax. So we then talk about Keaton's Batman, which is still without question the biggest selling point of this film. And overall, he does look great as Bruce Wayne. And the film is clearly riffing off of all of the nostalgic feelings from his previous 2 films, as I mentioned before. As we all know, this was clearly the design from day one of this film. We have him delivering the classic line, "Do you want to get nuts?" But when I hear this delivery, I have the same feelings as what I felt with the first trailer, that it feels like Michael Keaton is too self-aware of the obvious nostalgia bait, and he doesn't deliver the lines with the same energy or enthusiasm. It's almost as if he's grown wary of the amount of times he's had to recite these lines because of his iconic role, and he's just doing the obligationary duty for this movie. And I'm still not sold on the look of his costume. Again, much like the Flash's, it has that plastic feel, especially when we have that shot where he delivers the "Do you want to get nuts?" line. When I look at the forearm gauntlets in particular, it just has that cheap looking feel to it. It doesn't look as tangible or as physical as what we saw from the original versions. Now, many drew attention to this shot here of where we see somebody with long hair opening up all of the Bat costumes in Wayne Manor. Now, many have stated that it's a female. Perhaps it might be Kim Basinger, who played Vicky Vale. Some have speculated that it could indeed be Michelle Pfeiffer. But I believe that it is Bruce Wayne with longer hair, and this is probably a scene that we see at the beginning of the movie. And it will likely be some sort of flashback exposition where we introduce Bruce Wayne and find out what he has been up to many years post Batman Returns within this timeline. And he does make reference to this within a trailer when he talks to Barry about he's always been fighting to retain the memory and presence of his parents, and that now Barry has gone back in time and has somehow managed to do this as well. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of references to other Batman from other universes. Again, we still have to leave that door open as to whether we will see some cameos from other Batman, whether it will be George Clooney. I very much doubt that we may see Christian Bale. We'll wait and see when the film overall arrives. So as I stated before, I'm not as excited or hyped up for this movie because it is essentially a nostalgia grab. And yes, many people have noted, and this is true, that the Flashpoint storyline has been kind of overused, certainly within the last 10 years. I still think the best rendition is the animated film from 2013. I still hold that as perhaps the best DC animated film. But in terms of the games and certainly what we've seen as well with the CW adaptation of it, it does seem overused at this point. So if you're well versed within the comic book storyline, you're not going to really see too many surprises, I would have felt. And it's not even really a true adaptation because the Flashpoint storyline itself went on for multiple issues, and we went far more in depth in terms of all of these alternate versions of the character. So for example, we're very unlikely going to see the massive all-out war between the Atlanteans and the Amazonians as what was the case with the comic book source material. So it does make you think, what's the point of doing this storyline at all? But as I've said before, this is really kind of one and done. This will be, in my opinion, the real end of the Snyderverse, even though we do have Aquaman and Lost Kingdom and Blue Beetle following this as well. But this should be the concluding part where whatever happens throughout the story, Barry will end up reversing the timeline, and then that will set the reboot straight for the upcoming era of the James Gunn universe. So again, you're going into this with a faded hype, knowing that there will be nothing really to come of this regarding of what happens throughout the movie. But as I said before, we will wait and see what happens, and when the film does release in a couple of months' time, I will of course provide both non-spoiler and spoiler reviews, and of course provide commentary on how well it does at the box office. I think it's safe to say that it will perform much better than Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Blue Beetle as well. I don't think this will make $1 billion. I don't think the wave of nostalgia is quite there as what it was, as what we saw with both Andy Garfield and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man No Way Home, and of course the fact that the MCU was in far a better place than what the DCEU is at this stage. So I do think it will garner some big box office, but nowhere near the $1 billion that Warner Brothers were probably hoping for. And again, this will be a one and done, and I very much doubt that we will see Ezra Miller in the role going forward for any future projects. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings on the second Flash trailer. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you any more excited? Are you any less excited? Do you think this will be successful? Will it somehow perform a miracle and gross $1 billion? And if it does, will it make Warner Brothers rethink their decision and somehow continue with Ezra Miller in the future as the Flash? Or do you think this will be a one and done, and that we really should now just wind down and look forward to what we will see going forward with the James Gunn era of the DC Universe? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the entertainment field that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please consider hitting like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.